The movie industry out there is absolutely burning around us. And of course, there's a new box office look at this movie for The Blue Beetle. Doesn't seem good. Well, this could also be fallout from the controversy that happened earlier this year. So, early projections for The Blue Beetle in the box office are not looking good. This is another DC $100 million movie that's just not going to take off. Honestly, it's $120 million for this movie, and they're projecting 12 to 17 million on opening weekend. That's not good. When the projections are that low, is this actually going to do something? Is this actually going to pick up? I don't think so, because who in the world knows anything about the Blue Beetle? He's one character that doesn't really bode very well in the DC comic universe. Playing alongside Batman in Brave and the Bold, it was a cartoon where it just didn't really take off. Like, the character is not well known. He's not one of the big three, which is Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. Then you have the Flash, Green Lantern, which are all your top bets. And then down on the bottom of the ranks, when it came to the Justice League, you have the Blue Beetle. He wasn't really some character that really rose up in the fandoms for in the comic book industry altogether. And then they made it something more, where the director coming out talking about how the Blue Beetle is calling Batman a fascist.
Bro, it's like Batman stuff. Batman's a fascist.
You know, Batman, Bruce Wayne, the I cannot say the damn word, the Mr. Beast of the DC comic universe of Batman apparently is a fascist because he beats up criminals and takes them off the street. He cleans up cities and does what he can as a vigilante. It's very strange that you would choose that now suddenly someone that works outside the law, being a fascist that doesn't want to control everyone around him. He just wants to make sure the streets are clean, where you can walk down the street and not get murdered or shot or lose your parents as the pearl clutching continues. This is where we are today. Now, with the Blue Beetle, I don't see this movie taking off in the first place. It wasn't really anything I had that much of an interest to, mostly because he's not a well-known character. Yeah, he has a comic book line. People did buy it up, but it wasn't the one comic book that went truly mainstream, and they're trying to pick and choose from every little detail. And on the Marvel side of things, we have the Marvels with Captain Marvel and Miss Marvel, and you just kind of have to sit there and cringe at the comic book superhero movies that are coming out, because they're not what people want. People want to see the top tier superheroes. That's where the money is. So in the DC land, you got Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. Then you have the Flash and Green Lantern, which the Flash is doing worse than the Green Lantern movie, which is that in itself is just something to behold. But then you go on to the Marvel side, and you have the X-Men, you have the Avengers, you have Thor, Iron Man, Wolverine, Deadpool. You have everyone that is so much bigger. Hell, you have Spider-Man and Venom doing their own lines of movies and just doing well, where this one, it just seems like it's not going to go very good. This upcoming DC superhero movie will introduce the DC universe, the DCU character known as the protagonist, after Jamie Raines graduated from college and returns to his hometown Palmyra City. He is chosen to become the symbiotic host to the Scarab, an ancient alien biotechnological relic that grants him powerful exoskeleton armor, turning him into the superhero Blue Beetle. That's what the synopsis says, apparently. But it's currently tracking for a $12 to $17 million in the domestic box opening. That's not good. There's also two movies out there right now that it's got to contend with, one being Oppenheimer and the other one being the Barbie movie, which The Barbie movie looks like it's doing quite well, but the reviews from the fans is not great. It's being described more of a feminist nightmare of a movie than being more of a Barbie. Well, what do you expect? It's Barbie. It's going to probably tie into a lot of the modern day takes that we see with movies. I want to see Oppenheimer. I just don't know when and if I can ever get to the theater. Now, the Blue Beetle, really? Really? It's not one of those movies that you'd think would actually do something. No knock on the actors or actresses that are in the movie. It just doesn't seem like it's going to be up there on the top tier of movies. Let's take a quick look. Oh God, that's some crazy ass. So this guy's a rich boy, right off the bat, diving into the rich blood of the Blue Beetle. Yeah, yeah, uh-huh. Okay, yeah, he went to a private school, and yet they're the ones calling Batman and the fascists. Okay. Not saying going to a private school leads to that. It just that's a joke. So he picks up a rock and becomes the Blue Beetle. Oh my God, what is going on? Everything's melting around him. Much similar to Venom when it comes to the Spider-Man. And DC and Marvel, back in the day, they were always rivals and they were always copying off each other. In a lot of cases, Stan Lee even came out and said, he would say something and then they would take that and run with it in DC Comics just to try and make that Detective Comics really stand out more so than Marvel. But then Marvel had always seem to have beat them to the punch. They have their ups, they have their downs, but right now the superhero fandom in the movie theaters is not set to do very well. Cool. So he's the Blue Beetle. He's got an exoskeleton. He goes into space. Is this vindicative of the Blue Beetle? I'll be honest, I don't follow a lot of the Blue Beetle because he's not that well known of a character. I just know him from cartoons like Brave and the Bold or a couple other cameos that he did with the Justice League. That's about all I know of the Blue Beetle when it came down to it. I don't read the Blue Beetle comics. I don't go out of my way to read them. They're not where I want to go, and that I think is going to be where this really sits. Now, it could be surprising. They could be saying, the projections of the movie aren't going to do very well. Maybe the movie comes out and then a couple people see it and they go, you know what, this is a pretty good movie. Everyone needs to go see it. And that could be the case, but it just doesn't sound like it's going to land very well, especially when they're sitting there calling out other characters as fascists. Like, what kind of attitude is that when you have a movie that's not that well known? Much like this channel. I'm not that well known. I'm not going to sit there and call everyone out there on YouTube and whatever they want to be. I just want you to subscribe to the channel. That's all I want. You go down, hit the button, and say subscribe, because you do that, you help us all out. Anyway, I'm your proud Canadian Phoenix, Shadow. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I will see you again very soon.